The rich, resonant sound of the cello, once the heartbeat of Lena's life, had faded into a distant memory. Her apartment in Brooklyn, New York, where melodies used to dance through every corner, now felt like a hollow shell. Sheet music scattered across the piano stared back at her, a cruel reminder of what she'd lost. Her right hand trembled as it brushed the edge of the cello she hadn't touched in months. The accident was seared into her mind. She'd been at the peak of her career, sold-out international tours, standing ovations every night. Then, in a split second, everything changed. A car crash, a screech of brakes, and unbearable pain. The physical injuries healed, but the silence that followed broke her. Doctors promised rehabilitation would help, but no one told her how to mend her shattered spirit. What if I never play again? The question haunted her, an unresolved chord echoing in her head. Her fingers, once nimble and precise, now felt heavy, foreign. She tried to play, but every time the bow grazed the strings, a lump formed in her throat. She couldn't. Something inside her was broken. With a heavy sigh, Lena stood from her stool. Sleepless nights fueled by frustration had become her norm. The accident left physical scars, but the deeper wound, the one she couldn't name, tormented her most. Outside her window, the bustling city of New York pulsed with life, indifferent to her pain. Every morning she watched street musicians in a nearby Greenwich Village square playing with a carefree joy that burned her with envy. How could they make it look so easy? For them, music was a sanctuary. For her, it had become a battlefield. A knock at the door snapped her out of her thoughts. It was her friend and fellow musician Chloe. Always checking in, Chloe insisted Lena needed company, though Lena craved solitude. She wasn't ready to face anyone's pity. "Hey, how you holding up?" Chloe asked, her voice tinged with concern she tried to mask. "Same as always," Lena replied, forcing a smile. She knew Chloe meant well, but the constant, "things will get better," felt hollow. How could Chloe know? She hadn't lost everything. Chloe studied her for a moment before sitting down. "I've been thinking. I know someone who might help." Lena raised an eyebrow. She'd heard this before. Someone always knew someone who could fix her. No one understood what she was going through. "It's not a doctor or a therapist," Chloe said, sensing her skepticism. "His name's Marcus. He's a conductor with a different approach. He's helped musicians through tough times." "A conductor?" Lena let out a dry laugh. "Chloe, I don't need someone to teach me how to read music. I can't play, period." "It's not like that. Marcus is unique. He's worked with musicians who've hit emotional or physical walls. His methods aren't standard, but they work. Just talk to him. What's the harm?" Lena searched Chloe's face for any hint of exaggeration, but her friend was earnest. Doubt gnawed at her. Part of her clung to any flicker of hope, but the rational side knew no one could bring back what she'd lost. Still, Chloe's persistence was hard to brush off. After months of frustration, maybe her own way wasn't enough anymore. "Fine," Lena sighed. "Tell him to come by." Chloe's face lit up, and she stood to leave. "I'll set it up. Don't worry." When the door closed, Lena's gaze drifted back to her cello. Its strings were taut, unmoved, but deep inside her something stirred, a faint spark of curiosity, or maybe the last ember of hope. The day came faster than Lena expected. She still wasn't sure she'd made the right call agreeing to meet Marcus. Uncertainty clung to her as she prepared for their first meeting. A week had passed since Chloe brought up this unconventional conductor, and while part of Lena yearned for a breakthrough, another part scoffed at the idea. What could a conductor do for her? When the doorbell rang that afternoon, her stomach twisted. Opening the door, she found a tall, lanky man with messy hair and a scruffy beard, looking more like a struggling artist than a renowned maestro. His warm smile and sharp, observant eyes caught her off guard. They studied her without feeling invasive. "You must be Lena," he said, his voice calm but steady, offering his hand. "I'm Marcus." "Hi. Yeah, that's me." She hesitated before shaking his hand. His gaze flicked briefly to the cello behind her, but he didn't comment. Marcus stepped inside with an ease that threw her off. He seemed at home, like he'd been there before. Lena gestured to a chair, and after an awkward pause, they sat across from each other. "Chloe's told me a lot about you," Marcus began, leaning back. "I know you've been through hell, and I'm guessing you're tired of empty pep talks, so I'll skip those." Lena raised an eyebrow, surprised by his bluntness. She wasn't used to people cutting through the pleasantries. My approach isn't typical, he continued. It's not about physical rehab or relaxation tricks. It's about reconnecting with yourself, with the music inside you, beyond technique, beyond what others expect of you. He paused, watching her reaction. Lena's skepticism flickered across her face. I get the doubt, he said, but before I explain more, I want to invite you to something. Tonight at my studio in Greenwich Village, I'm hosting a session with musicians. Some are pros, some aren't, but they all come to explore music from a raw, vulnerable place. No pressure to join in, just come watch. If it doesn't click, no hard feelings, what do you say? Lena blinked, processing the offer. Observing without having to perform felt less daunting. He wasn't asking her to play, just to be there. What could she lose? Maybe nothing, nor maybe everything. Okay, she said finally, I'll go. Marcus's smile widened, like he'd known she'd agree all along. Great. I'll send you the address. See you at 7. After he left, Lena felt a mix of curiosity and nerves. What kind of musicians would be there? What was this vulnerable space where technique didn't matter? It sounded intriguing but absurd. For her, music had always been about precision and control. Without that, was it even music? That evening, standing in front of her mirror, Lena wavered. She didn't know how to dress for something like this. Finally, she chose something simple, understated. She wanted to blend in, to observe without being noticed. Marcus's studio was a small makeshift space with mismatched chairs and a worn-out piano. Musicians were already there, tuning instruments, chatting casually. The atmosphere was loose, almost chaotic, nothing like the rigid rehearsals Lena was used to. Marcus greeted her warmly and led her to a seat in the back. He didn't draw attention to her presence, which she appreciated. She sat quietly, taking it all in. As the room filled, Marcus stepped forward and, without warning, began conducting an improvisation. No sheet music, just subtle cues. What emerged wasn't polished. It was a raw blend of sounds, emotions, and unfiltered expression. Lena had never seen anything like it. At first it felt messy, disorganized, but as the minutes passed, she noticed something. There was beauty in the freedom, in the imperfection. These musicians weren't playing to impress. They were pouring out something deep, personal. For the first time in months, Lena felt a faint stir of emotion listening to music. When the improvisation ended, a quiet hush settled over Marcus's studio. The musicians exchanged smiles, some chuckling softly, others tweaking their instruments, content with what they'd created. Lena, tucked in the back, was speechless. Something inside her had shifted, though she couldn't pin it down. Marcus approached her slowly, giving her space to process. "What did you think?" he asked, his tone easygoing. Lena hesitated, searching for the right words. It was hard to describe the mix of unease and fascination she felt. "I don't know," she admitted quietly. "It's nothing like I've ever seen." "That's the point," Marcus said with a grin. "It's not about perfection. It's about feeling. Music doesn't always need a blueprint. Sometimes the best stuff comes from chaos." Lena nodded slowly. His words struck a chord. Her entire life had been about discipline, mastering every note, every motion. Yet here, in a place where rules seemed non-existent, something beautiful had emerged. Marcus didn't push her further. He let her sit with her thoughts, giving her room to breathe. As the musicians packed up, swapping stories and goodbyes, Lena lingered, watching their easy camaraderie. There was no judgment here, just support. When she finally stood to leave, Marcus caught up with her. "I know it's a lot to take in," he said, "but my studio's always open to you. If you want to come back, we'll be here." Lena gave a small nod and stepped into the cool night air. The city was calm, her footsteps echoing on the empty sidewalk. Images of the musicians playing looped in her mind. Their fearless expression, unafraid of mistakes, stuck with her. That night, back in her apartment in Brooklyn, Lena sat in front of her cello. She stared at it, unmoving. Memories of the accident tangled with visions of Marcus's studio. Despite the fear still gripping her, a tiny spark of curiosity flickered. Without overthinking, she picked up the bow and rested it on the strings. Closing her eyes, she tried to recall the effortless flow of playing, but when she drew the bow, the sound was clumsy, off-key, far from the melodies she once commanded. She stopped, frustration surging. The lump in her throat returned. She shoved the cello aside and stood, feeling useless. It wasn't just her rusty technique, it was fear of never being herself again. The next few days were an emotional tug-of-war. Marcus's studio lingered in her mind, but the thought of playing terrified her. Chloe called, eager for updates, but Lena dodged the topic. She felt stuck at a crossroads. One afternoon, strolling through a park in Central Park, she found herself near Marcus's studio. She hadn't planned to go, but something pulled her there. The place was empty, lights off, but the door was ajar. She slipped inside. Marcus was at the piano, playing a soft, almost hypnotic melody. He didn't notice her at first, and Lena stood still, listening. The simplicity of the music, brimming with emotion, moved her deeply. It wasn't flashy or technical, but it was real. When Marcus spotted her, he stopped. "Didn't expect you today," he said, smiling. "I wasn't sure I'd come," Lena admitted, stepping closer, "but I needed to be here." Marcus studied her, as if sensing more than she let on. "Sometimes just showing up is enough," he said, turning back to the piano. "You don't have to play if you're not ready, but being here's a good start." Lena sank into a nearby chair and closed her eyes as Marcus resumed playing. For the first time in ages, she let herself simply listen. The days after visiting Marcus's studio felt different for Lena. She hadn't played since that frustrating night at home, but her mindset was shifting. A small crack had formed in her mental barriers, a willingness to explore what Marcus was offering. It wasn't just about playing perfectly, it was about reconnecting with music on a deeper level. One afternoon, Chloe called, her voice bubbling with excitement. "I'm so glad you went to Marcus's. He said you seemed open to it." "That's huge, right?" Lena wasn't sure open was the right word, but she couldn't deny Marcus's approach intrigued her. "Maybe," she said cautiously. "I'm not ready to play, but something about that place made me feel calmer." "That's the first step," Chloe said warmly. "Don't rush it. You'll get there. I know you, Lena. There's still a fire in you. Marcus sees it too." The conversation stuck with Lena. Was there still a part of her that craved music? Maybe, buried under trauma and fear, a piece of the old Lena lingered. That night, on impulse, she decided to visit Marcus's studio again. No pressure, just to soak in the vibe. When she arrived, a group of musicians was already there, gearing up for another session. The atmosphere was slightly more focused, but still relaxed. Marcus moved among them with his usual calm, a stark contrast to the group's buzzing energy. "Glad you're back," Marcus said when he spotted her. "We're trying something a bit different today." Lena nodded and took a seat, watching as Marcus gave vague instructions before the musicians started playing. This time, instead of total improvisation, they followed a loose theme, interpreting it freely. The music washed over her, stirring a wave of emotions. It wasn't flawless, but the musicians' raw commitment moved her deeply. She closed her eyes, letting the sounds carry her, free from the urge to critique every note. After a while, Marcus approached her quietly. "Want to join in?" he asked, nodding toward an empty cello in the corner. Her heart lurched. She almost said no, ready to retreat to safety. But something nudged her forward. Without a word, she stood and walked to the cello. Her breath quickened, hands shaking as she lifted it. The last time she'd tried, frustration had won. But here, where mistakes weren't punished, she decided to try. Marcus stayed silent, watching with a calm smile as she settled the cello and placed the bow on the strings. Closing her eyes, she let her hands move freely, ignoring the outcome. The sound was soft at first, hesitant but not jarring. Her fingers found notes instinctively, as if her body remembered what her mind tried to forget. Slowly, a melody took shape. It wasn't perfect, but that didn't matter. Marcus subtly signaled the others to join, weaving their sounds around hers. The music swelled, and Lena, though nervous, felt a connection forming. Each stroke of the bow chipped away at her fear. She wasn't playing like before the accident, but in that moment, she was playing for herself, not to prove anything. When the music faded, Lena set the bow down and exhaled as if she'd been holding her breath. Tears pricked her eyes, not from sadness, but relief. Marcus approached, his smile knowing. "Not bad, huh?" he said gently. Lena wiped her eyes and nodded. It wasn't just not bad, as it was more than she'd thought possible. For the first time in months, she'd played without her trauma fully stopping her. Marcus left her to her thoughts as the others packed up. Some musicians offered warm smiles, acknowledging her courage without crowding her. That night, leaving the studio, Lena felt a piece of herself healing. It wasn't instant, but it was a start. After her breakthrough at Marcus's studio, Lena felt a surge of energy, as if light had pierced the darkness that had cloaked her for so long. In the days that followed, she practiced at home, embracing the freedom to play without chasing perfection. The cello became a haven again, a space to let her emotions flow without judgment, but with every note, the shadow of her past lingered. Each time she played, memories of the accident crept in, vivid and suffocating. She tried to focus on the music, but fear and anxiety lurked like ghosts she couldn't shake. One afternoon, mid-practice, a knock at the door broke her focus. It was Chloe, her face etched with worry. "I've been calling, but you haven't picked up. You okay?" Chloe asked, stepping inside uninvited. "I'm fine, just busy," Lena said, her voice unsteady. Chloe raised an eyebrow, unconvinced. She could see through Lena's facade. "I've been thinking about what Marcus said, playing without fear. Maybe you should try it again. You made such a big step at his studio," Chloe said. "Yeah, but..." Lena hesitated, searching for words. "Some days I just can't. The fear, it's overwhelming." "What if you talk to Marcus about it?" Chloe suggested carefully. "He might help you work through it." Lena frowned. The thought of bearing her trauma to Marcus unsettled her. She wasn't ready to share that pain with someone she barely knew. Yet, deep down, she knew avoiding it wouldn't fix anything. She was trapped in a cycle of fear and denial, keeping her from her passion. "Maybe I need to," she admitted, feeling exposed. Chloe smiled, relieved Lena was considering it. "That's my girl. You're not alone, okay? We're all here for you." The next morning, Lena gathered her courage and headed to Marcus's studio. Each step filled her with anxiety, but also determination. She couldn't keep hiding. She had to face her fear. Marcus was tuning the piano when she arrived. Seeing her, he smiled. "Hey Lena, good to see you." "Thanks," she said, her voice shaky. "I wanted to talk about what's been going on." Marcus stopped playing and sat nearby. He could see the struggle in her eyes. "I'm all ears," he said, settling in. "What's up?" Words caught in Lena's throat. Opening up was hard, but she knew it was necessary. Taking a deep breath, she began. "After the accident, it's like I lost more than my ability to play. I lost part of who I am. I've been trying to get back to music, but every time the fear comes back. The past, it's always there, and I don't know how to let it go." Marcus listened intently, nodding. "Fear's a tough companion," he said thoughtfully, "but it can also teach you if you listen. Acknowledging it is the first step to moving past it." Tears welled in Lena's eyes. Marcus's words hit home. She'd felt so alone in her pain, and here was someone who seemed to get it. "I don't know if I can do this," she confessed, her voice trembling. "I don't know if I can play like I used to." "You don't need to play like you used to," Marcus said softly. "You just need to play as you are now. It's not about going back. It's about finding who you are in this new chapter." Lena's heart raced. The idea of a fresh start, a different path, sparked hope and uncertainty. Marcus's calm conviction was comforting. Maybe music was more than technique. Maybe there was room for healing. With newfound resolve, she stood and approached the cello. The fear was still there, but so was a chance to turn pain into something beautiful. She picked up the bow and, with a shaky motion, played a simple melody. It wasn't perfect, but it was a beginning. As Lena settled into her new routine, fear remained, but something inside her had shifted. Each note she played became an act of release, and despite the uncertainty, every session brought her closer to the music she once loved. At the studio, Marcus became a guide, helping her rediscover her passion and voice as a musician. Rehearsals turned into moments of exploration. Marcus taught her to hear music not just with her ears, but with her whole being. She began to see music as expression, a way to channel her emotions. For the first time, the cello wasn't just an instrument, it was an extension of her soul. During one session, Marcus switched things up. "Today, let's try something new," he said, shuffling sheet music. "I want you to play a melody that captures what you're feeling right now. It doesn't need to be perfect, just real." Lena's heart skipped. Creating something original, straight from her heart, was thrilling and terrifying. Doubt crept in. What if her melody fell flat? Taking a deep breath, she let the other musicians' sounds guide her. Closing her eyes, she let her hands glide over the strings. At first, the notes wobbled, but they soon flowed. With each measure, Lena sank deeper into her creation. feeling sadness, anxiety, and hope pour out. Marcus watched closely, nodding with approval. The other musicians joined in, building around her, urging her forward. The music became a bridge between her pain and her desire to heal. When it ended, a reverent silence filled the room. Lena opened her eyes, overwhelmed. The musicians' looks were warm, encouraging. It was a moment of true connection, filling her with a warmth she hadn't felt in ages. "That was beautiful," Marcus said, stepping closer. "You didn't just play a melody. You played your truth. That's what music needs. Authenticity." His words echoed in her mind. Lena began to grasp that she didn't need to be the pre-accident version of herself. A new Lena was emerging, finding beauty in her flaws. But as she dove deeper into this self-discovery, her past's shadow lingered. Nights brought restless memories, and she'd wake sweating, reliving the accident's anguish. Despite the light creeping into her life, darkness still loomed. One night, after a tough day, Lena walked to clear her mind. The quiet streets of Greenwich Village and cool air offered relief, but thoughts of the accident hounded her. Why couldn't she move on? Why did she feel trapped? In a small park, she sat on a bench, seeking calm. Then, faintly, she heard a cello. The melody, though warped, felt familiar, like a call to return. Drawn to it, she followed the sound to a group of musicians playing in a corner of the park, laughing and enjoying themselves. Watching from afar, nostalgia and longing hit her. She wanted to join, but fear crept in. Then Marcus's words returned. "Music needs authenticity." Emotions surged. Standing, she hesitated, then approached. One musician offered her his cello with a nod. Hands trembling, she took it and joined the melody. As she played, the world faded. The music enveloped her, each note cleansing her soul. She let her heart lead, surrendering to the moment, free from past or future. The experience transformed her. For the first time, she shed her trauma's weight and embraced music's power. When she finished, the group smiled warmly, and Lena felt the burden she'd carried begin to lift. Dawn brought a warm glow to Lena's room. Despite the previous night's turmoil, she woke with renewed energy. Playing with the park musicians had loosened the chains tying her to her past. Determined to stay on this path, she headed to Marcus's studio, eager to share her breakthrough. When she arrived, Marcus was adjusting instruments. Seeing her, he grinned. "Morning, Lena. How are you feeling?" he asked brightly. "Morning. I feel different. Last night I played in the park. It was amazing," she said, barely containing her excitement. Marcus's eyes sparkled. "That's incredible. How was it playing with others?" "Freeing. For the first time, I wasn't scared. I just let the music flow," she said, her anxiety easing. Marcus nodded, impressed. "That's what I wanted you to find. Music's a journey. Sometimes you get lost to find yourself again." His words bolstered Lena's confidence. Ready to push further, she pitched an idea she'd never dared before. "What if we held an open mic night at the studio? A place for everyone to share what they've learned." Marcus's face lit up. "That's a fantastic idea. A showcase could be the spark you need, and not just you. Others will feel it too. Let's do it." Preparations buzzed with energy. Lena was thrilled but nervous. Performing for a crowd, even a small one, made her heart race. Yet each practice felt freer, and the idea of sharing her music drove her forward. As the event neared, the studio hummed with excitement. Musicians of all levels joined, sharing fears and dreams, forging a tight-knit vibe. Music became their common thread, and Lena's fear began to fade into trust. The recital night arrived, the studio packed with supporters. Lena's nerves flared, but the encouraging faces steadied her. When her turn came, she stepped up, cello in hand. Looking at the crowd, her pulse quickened. Was she ready? Recalling Marcus's words, authenticity, she closed her eyes, breathed deeply, and let herself be vulnerable. The first note rang out, unleashing a flood of emotion. She played with passion, each measure echoing her journey. Time dissolved. It was just her and the music. The crowd sat rapt, drawn into her story. When she finished, applause thundered. Lena smiled, tears in her eyes. She hadn't just played, she'd shared her soul. She'd taken a vital step toward healing. Afterward, Marcus approached, beaming. "You did it, Lena. I'm so proud." "Thanks, Marcus. I couldn't have done it without you," she said, gratitude swelling. As the night unfolded, music and laughter filled the air. Lena felt alive, ready for whatever lay ahead. She knew her journey wasn't over, but she was prepared to face it, her inner light shining brighter than her past shadows. The days after the recital were an emotional whirlwind for Lena. The high of overcoming her fear and playing for a crowd fueled her, but she also felt raw, as if each note had bared her soul. As the music's echo faded, old memories resurfaced, shadows she'd tried to leave behind. One afternoon, practicing in the studio, sunlight hit her cello, sparking a moment of clarity. Inspired, she decided to record a video of her playing. Sharing her journey online was appealing, but anxiety flared at the thought of judgment, of facing the critical eyes she'd known before. Hands shaking, she hit record and started playing, but focus slipped. Images of the crash, the screech, the pain, flooded her mind. She stopped, gasping, panic rising. "What's wrong with me?" she muttered, frustrated. Despite her progress, her trauma lurked. Marcus walked in, sensing the tension. "You okay, Lena?" he asked, concerned. "No," she admitted. "I can't focus. Every time I play, the accident creeps in. It's like part of me is still trapped there." Marcus sat beside her, his hand on her shoulder. "That's normal. Healing's not a straight line. There'll be bumps, but recognizing them is how you move forward." His calm grounded her. He suggested writing down her feelings, a simple, freeing idea. Maybe words could lighten her load. That night, Lena sat at her desk, pen in hand. Words poured out, her pain, the accident, her longing to reclaim herself. The weight eased as she wrote, her fears taking shape on paper. It was cathartic, turning chaos into clarity. She wasn't just her pain, it was part of her story. The next day, she shared her experience with Marcus, nervous but eager for his take. "Last night, I wrote about my feelings. It was freeing," she said, hesitant. Marcus smiled, encouraging her to share. "I'd love to read it. Writing's a powerful tool." She handed him the pages, anxiety rising as he read. When he finished, he looked up, grinning. "This is amazing, Lena. You've laid your struggle bare so vividly." His praise emboldened her. "Should I share it with the group?" she asked, unsure. "Definitely," Marcus said. "Your story could resonate. You're not alone. Sharing builds bonds." Her doubts faded. She'd found a way to weave her music with her story, ready to share it. That weekend, she hosted a gathering at the studio, inviting musicians to hear her journey. Nerves and excitement swirled as she prepared. She knew this was a milestone in her recovery. As the group settled in, Lena stood, her voice shaky at first. She shared her accident, her struggles, and her rediscovery through music and writing. Confidence grew with each word. The room filled with empathy, and Lena felt embraced by their support. Applause followed, warm and genuine. Musicians shared their tales, creating a bond through vulnerability. Lena saw she'd taken another step forward. Each note, word, and story wove a network of healing. The studio's soft lights created a warm, inviting glow, fostering warmth and connection. Sharing her story transformed Lena, as if each word had knit her closer to others. Her peers found strength in her words, their own wounds easing. That night's bond was profound. Days passed, filled with deep rehearsals and talks with Marcus and the musicians. Lena felt part of something larger. Music, once her escape, now voiced her healing. But as connections deepened, so did pressure. Being a role model for others, representing those who'd suffered like her, weighed on her. Could she be their beacon, or was she just a shadow of her former self? One day, during rehearsal, Marcus watched her. Noticing strain in her playing, he paused her. "Lena, let's chat," he said, his smile gentle. She stopped, uneasy. "What's up, Marcus?" "I've seen you seem tense lately," he said. "It's okay to be vulnerable. You don't need to be perfect." Lena nodded, his words hitting home. "You're right. I feel like I have to have it all together, but I'm still struggling," she admitted. Marcus's expression softened. "Music's about authenticity, not perfection. Your story makes you you. Let yourself be flawed and grow." His words shifted her outlook. Instead of striving to inspire, Lena chose to enjoy music freely. She explored new compositions, letting creativity roam unbound. Inspired, she pitched an idea to Marcus. "What if we held a jam session? Something laid back where everyone can play whatever they feel," she said, excitement rising. Marcus grinned instantly. That's awesome. Jamming's perfect for shedding pressure. Let's make it happen. Prep kicked off fast. Lena invited all the musicians, and though some hesitated at improvising, the studio buzzed with energy. On jam day, anticipation crackled, the air filled with chatter and laughs. Lena relaxed, seeing everyone eager to let go and play. Cello in hand, she kicked off with a gentle melody. Others joined, their sounds blending into a vibrant symphony. At first it was shaky, but confidence bloomed. Each musician added their flair, the music a candid exchange. Laughter rang out, the outside world forgotten. Mid-jam, Lena felt every note pulse with her core. Playing freely with others was pure joy, the weight of expectations gone. Only the thrill of creation remained. When the session ended, applause and cheers erupted. Lena looked around, gratitude swelling. She'd found her voice not just through her cello, but through the bonds she'd built. Yet she knew her journey wasn't done. Her past's echo lingered, but she'd learned to embrace both her light and shadows. The studio still thrummed with the jam session's energy. Lena felt renewed, each chord played with friends shaking off her past's chains. But as the high faded, a quiet melancholy settled. She knew her true test was coming. The next week, Marcus proposed a challenge. "What if we put on a concert to showcase your new compositions?" he suggested, eyes alight. Lena's heart raced. It was a huge leap, and performing again both thrilled and scared her. "You sure I'm ready?" she asked, doubt creeping in. Marcus met her gaze firmly. "Remember, it's not about perfection. It's about being real. Your journey's inspiring. People need to hear it." After reflection, Lena agreed. She wanted to share her story, to show music's healing power. She crafted a set list of her originals and jam session melodies, reflecting her growth, pain, and triumph. Concert day, the studio became a lively stage. Friends and family filled the space, their buzz electric. Seeing them, Lena felt nerves and excitement collide. Instead of buckling, she clung to Marcus's words. Stepping to the mic, she took a breath. "Thank you all for being here. Today I'm sharing my journey. Every note reflects my struggles and victories. I hope you find something in it," she said, voice raw. She began her first piece, written after her writing breakthrough. Each note flowed, her emotions spilling free. The cello's sound wrapped the room, captivating the crowd. As she played, fear dissolved. Music became a shared language, linking everyone. It was a collective heartbeat, a shared feeling. Mid-performance, her mind flicked to the accident, the chaos, the loss. Doubt whispered, but this time, she faced it. Closing her eyes, she let the music pour through. Her final piece, a tribute to her transformation, rang with her spirit's strength, her bond with the cello unbreakable. When it ended, applause roared. Lena blinked, overwhelmed by the warmth. She'd conquered fear, bearing her true self, forging a deep connection with her listeners. Marcus approached, beaming. "You killed it, Lena. That was incredible." "Thanks, Marcus. I owe you everything," she said, heart full. The night rolled on, filled with music and joy. Lena felt alive, her purpose clear. She'd learned music was her haven and challenge, a way to face her shadows and craft beauty from them. As laughter echoed, Lena knew her story wasn't done. With each note, she'd keep writing her symphony, a life still unfolding, ready for whatever came next. Thank you for watching Bloom Between Us. If you enjoyed this emotional love story, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for daily heartfelt romance and inspiring stories. Share with friends who believe in true love and second chances. Your support helps us keep bringing beautiful tales of connection and growth.